faceoff. Shoots it deflected. Right in. Pietrangelo save rebound. Stastny stopped by Pietrangelo. I don't believe that save. Neither does Peter Stastny. He can't believe the save that Pietrangelo just made on him as Frankie sparkling on that maneuver there to stop and rob Peter Stastny. He should get 5 to 10 for that.
Hello and welcome to episode 59 of Tendy Talk, presented by the BLPA and the Hockey Podcast Networks. I'm your host Joe, better known as Wash Up Goalie on social media. This week I chat with Tory Dalbec, the fellow over at General Sports of Minnesota who helped me place my custom Vaughn order. He is also a coach with Devenir Goaltending. So, without further ado, let's get to the conversation with Tory. Well, Tory, thanks for joining me on the podcast. Good to talk to you and see you again.
Certainly. Those pads look great in the background.
They do. I've had them on the ice, I think, 4 times now.
Okay.
Getting used to them. It's definitely an adjustment. One thing I've noticed is the blocker. There's a lot more on the inside than there used to be on the inside of the hand. So just getting a good feel for the stick right here.
In there. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's been a interesting one where it's like I almost wish this was a little bit wider, but I'll get used to that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, in fact, I had one the other night. I went to put my paddle down, and because of a different blocker, like there was that much underneath, and I'm like, how the heck did the puck go underneath? Go in the net? It's just enough to go right through. But a little thing like that, and even in my resting position of putting my elbows on my knees, it's like that, finding that right makes it
right. They're still stiff, eh? Still.
Yeah, I think I figured out the strapping the way I'm going to like that last 2 games. So that was fun. I think the first time I had them on, I had them way too tight, so I had to loosen them up a little bit.
They don't play like that so much anymore. Everything's going looser and Velcro. So luckily Vaughn was able to get you strapping still.
Yeah,
most pads don't even come with bootstraps anymore. It's changing.
I am enjoying the fact that they come off a lot quicker after games.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Time for a few more adult beverages on that means.
Yeah, exactly. But you talk about the straps, the one at the top, like we both talked, it's going to serve absolutely no purpose, but it's there simply for old time's sake. And every time I strap it up, I'm like, this is doing nothing. But
it's the classic look, right?
Yeah, it just felt like I needed one up there, and so I'm glad they were able to accommodate that.
Yeah, certainly.
But before we talk too much about the pads, let's talk a little bit about you. And you're from Minnesota, so it's obvious kind of how you got into hockey. But tell your side of the story. How did you get exposed to the great game of hockey and start playing?
So growing up, my grandparents lived up in Superior, and they always had a rink. My grandpa made a rink out in his backyard. So as soon as I could skate, I was out there skating all the time up in Superior. And then coming back down here, we actually grew up in Southwest Minneapolis. Played with a bunch of my childhood friends there for years. And as we were getting older, we started to realize that we probably weren't going to end up at Southwest High School. So my parents made the move, and we moved to Edina when I was a middle schooler. Made that transition, loved moving to Edina, a little bit different pace of hockey, a little more competitive. Yep. A few more goalies to try out against, that's for sure. But it was always it was fun. It was fun to join that culture. And played high school hockey my sophomore year, and ended up being one of your previous podcast guests, Adam Carlson's goalie partner for the last 2 years of high school, and had some opportunities to maybe look at like a tier 3 or something after high school, but decided I ultimately just wanted to get school started with. So that was actually the end of my hockey career, was after high school. I went and played college football at NDSU, but hockey was something I always kept my eye on, still watched the high school hockey tournaments, still did as plugged in as I could be when I was living in Fargo. And as soon as I got too many injuries in football after my sophomore year up there, I moved back home and started my coaching career. So I've been coaching since 2017. Started with youth hockey and helping out with Devenir goaltenders on a part-time basis. Then after that, I really found my passion for the game again, and just wanted to be at the most competitive level possible. So I actually joined Hopkins coaching staff last year, and that's kind of where I'm filming from right now. Come to you live from the Hopkins Pavilion and the varsity locker room here. But I've been with Devenir since 2017, and now Hopkins High School boys the last couple of years here. So it's been a lot of fun, learning a lot along the way, and just enjoying the ride, really.
So you get started out skating young, no big surprise as a Minnesotan.
Yeah.
What drew you to goalie, though?
You know, it's one of those things. I'm a pretty competitive guy. I'm sure Adam can attest to that. You know, I don't like losing. And then we were in squirts. We had a goalie that was pretty solid, but I felt like we could do better.
Mm-hmm.
So first year squirts, I dropped the bomb on my parents. I wanted to be a goalie, and they're both tentative of it at first. You know, they didn't really. Neither one of them were goalies, and so. No, they were worried about the cost of it. And of course, I was a backwards goalie. I wanted to play backwards. So then they were worried about finding gear and everything. But after that, I found a passion for the game in a different light and really enjoyed the position through the summer. I think I did a stobber camp my first year. And then kind of just took it from there, made Squirt A. And it was after I learned the goalie skates, the transition from player skates to goalie skates, it was game over for me. I loved every minute of playing goalie after that. So
you mentioned that transition, and it's funny because I can't skate in forward skates anymore. I've been in goalie skates so long.
Right.
And I just had my skate sharpened literally for the first time in maybe 2 years before I put these pads on.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, what better time than now to get the skate sharpened? And that was a bad move because that first game with the new stuff, I was like a baby giraffe, learning to walk, but still somehow played a decent game. But I think they messed with my profile a little bit because I'm now more on my toes than I am my heels. And I'm like, okay, got to get used to this again.
Yeah, they rockered those toes for you a little too much, huh? Hopefully it wasn't at our shop.
No, it wasn't. I took them to Strauss right down the road from me.
They do a pretty good job usually. They got some good guys over there, we know.
Yeah, they had 3 stations going when I took them in. They even took the rust off the blade, so I was very happy. I think they should have charged.
You see a lot of those steels walking in the door. You have to spend a little bit of extra time on those, unfortunately, but
they should have charged me double for that.
Yeah, right.
I wouldn't have even argued that one.
Restoration project on some of these skates that come in this time of year. We call them pond rockets.
Yep, exactly. It's funny you mentioned the pond skates. My kids haven't played competitively. My son, he really likes the game, but he sees how much of a commitment it is for his buddies. You know, they're skating 6 to 8 times a week and practices at 9 o'clock when he's going to bed, and he's like, it's too much for me. So he skates on the pond all the time, and he gets the hand-me-down skates from all of his cousins. And it's funny because I think this year is the last year we're going to have hand-me-down skates for him because his foot's growing. It's like, oh my goodness, I got to go out and buy you skates next year. You know, probably go from the used bin most likely, but it's like
he's probably the smart one of those kids. Gets to have a little bit of life and get a taste of hockey at the same time. You know, saves you money too, right?
It does. You know, more so time. You know, it allows. I was driving home from my game last night, and I'm going, you know, if he played, how much would I really be able to play? Because we'd always be at rinks and whatnot. Okay. But you know, when they were little, we would go to my nephew's games and everything. And it was funny because when we asked him if he wanted to play, like his biggest issue at the time was hockey parents. He's like, I don't want to hear them. I don't want to be around that. And I was like, that's fair. I was like, now, you know, we wouldn't be those parents. He's like, yeah. But my teammates' parents would be.
Yeah.
So
I know what he's talking about. I've been pretty fortunate the last few years. I've had some really good parents around the teams that I've been involved with. But you do hear those horror stories, right? Like, Mike Randolph and a couple of those other stories getting out about parent pressure and stuff. Parents are getting more and more involved. I mean, at the end of the day, they want the best for their kids. But you know,
I remember
the top.
I was taking the level 3 coaching class for USA Hockey, and they had a big like hockey weekend down at the X where they were putting on all 3 coaching clinics they had a clinic for the parents. So you get there and they have all the coaches down ice level, and the parents were in the stands for like a keynote speaker to begin with. And then he went off into your breakout sessions. They had Don Lucia, and he gets up there. He goes, I'm happy to be here. I like to say I've got the second greatest job in the world. And people are kind of looking around. He goes, yep. If you're wondering, the first greatest job in the world is coaching for an orphanage, because you don't have to deal with parents. Yeah. And all the coaches on the floor are laughing, and then the parents, kind of in the bowl, they're sitting there like this, like, but
you can tell which ones are the parent coaches.
Yeah. And he even said at the college level, parents call in questioning, why isn't little Johnny playing on the power play? And he said the first time it happened, he went out to his admin, and he's like, what does it say on my door? And it says, head coach, University of Minnesota. And he goes, that's what I thought. I thought I was coaching college hockey and didn't have to deal with this anymore, but apparently I do. When I was coaching, we joked, there's that corner of the rink in every rink where there's a few parents that stand, and our head coach, he called it pitcher's corner, because that's where those parent coaches stand, is,
Yeah. Most likely to get a complaint from that corner.
Yeah, exactly. And then one of the kids on our team, his dad was the head of officiating for the district. So he always stood behind the goalies, because that was kind of off limits in our rink. He's like, if I stand here, everybody will leave me alone. They won't question, why aren't they making these calls or this or that? It was like, even though it was off limits for most people, the arena workers knew who he was, and we're like, no, he's good. He's harmless. He was allowed. Yeah, it was funny. Now you mentioned, you played through high school, but in college you were playing football. So you were a dual athlete. It was football your passion sport, or was that just the one you were better at and kind of got you into college?
Well, football was it was one of those things, honestly. I always loved watching football growing up, but it wasn't something that I really played until I got to 8th grade. Once I came to Edina, a couple of my buddies I played hockey with also played football. So one of the dads actually suggested that I come out and play with them that year. And turns out I was actually a decent football player. So it was one of those things where I didn't want to be the 21-year-old and freshman. I think hockey was always by far my biggest passion. Mm-hmm. Football was just something I had more opportunity with, so to speak.
Yep.
Was getting more opportunities, and it just made more sense to me at the time where I was at, where my family was at. Let's make the leap and see if we can't make a college football career out of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big jump going from Minnesota football up to DSU. They got some big farm boys up there. That's a tough brand of football they play, and
yep.
My brains got scrambled a few times, and it just wasn't really worth it as a walk-on at the end of the day. So.
Yep. As goalies, our brains get scrambled from time to time too. Right? So yeah, but I mean, hey, you gave it a shot. It was an experience, and that was quite the program to be a part of too.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, it's still crazy. You can turn on the games yesterday, and you're watching the Packer Viking game. You got Billy Turner playing. I think Joe Haig is still playing. Carson Wentz is still playing. Those are all guys that I went against every day in practice, and to see them still playing at a high level like that it's truly impressive. So
yep. Yeah. So you come back. How did you get hooked up with Devenir and that outfit? And
so those guys like to have a little fun. So I met Ryan through Adam through the years, and it was one of those things where Ryan kind of just reached out to me in October, seeing if I was be willing to help him out on a part-time basis to start and kind of see how it goes. And it's one of those things where I just fell in love with helping out the kids and being back at the rink all the time, and just being around the locker room, being around some of these kids that, are doing exactly what I love doing, having fun in the locker room, joking around. It's just one of those things where it kind of reignited that passion for hockey for me.
Yep.
And haven't been able to get out of the rink since. I feel like I'm at the rink more than I am at home in the wintertime nowadays. But
nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely not.
And I'm sure as I talked with Adam, the stories that S has never cease to amaze.
There's never a dull moment if you come train with Devenir goaltenders. That's
no, never a dull moment.
we've adapted the work hard, play hard mentality for sure. So
I remember my junior year, he was a freshman, and like he's just this goofball in the locker room, and we're like, who is this kid? And he's telling these stories from junior hockey. We're like, no. Like just be quiet, let us get ready for practice.
Right. No, he's good stuff though. He makes working the work environment really fun, and that's part of the reason why we have such a fun staff to be around. It's just we're there just for the same reason the kids are. We like to have fun with it, but we're going to push you to be your best at the end of the day at the same time. So
yeah, and let's not ignore the fact that the goalie school has been putting out some quality goaltenders, especially in girls hockey. You know, there's a lot of really good female goaltenders that have come out of Devenir.
Yeah, that's big thanks to Allie Altman on that. We get a lot more exposure to the female market just because of her position with USA Hockey. She's the under-18 women's national goalie coach. And so, I mean, and what better place than Minnesota to be able to try and develop girl goalies. And I like to joke that the girls listen better than the boys because there's not as many distractions. But no, we've had a lot of success with the female market, and really proud of all our goalies that have been working, and that we still got more coming. So they always seem to come out of nowhere. But
now you mentioned something that I remember. I used to work our summer hockey camps at St. Mary's, and I stayed the 1 year. I was a Zamboni driver, so I stayed through the 5 weeks of boys camps and then the 2 weeks of girls. But I did the afternoon goalie sessions, and you're absolutely right. The boys, you can tell them to do something, but you have to tell them 18 times. And but they're good. They're going to work hard every time you tell them. The girls, you need to tell them one time. There's slight differences. It's like the boys might work a little harder every time you tell them, but the girls are going to get it on the first try. It's just they're going to they're a little more what's the word I'm looking for cerebral, I think, than the boys. They might not go all out as they're working on it, but they're kind of going slow, trying to really feel it out and figure it out in the process.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it is fun, the difference between coaching the two. So you get through college, you start with Devenir, that's keeping you busy, and you start working at General Sports. Was that just because it was right by the rink, something to do? How did that get going?
So actually, Matt Happel, he's in that same group with Ryan S. there, and Matt Happel is the kind of the store manager. He's been there for 16 years. He's the one that's built this reputation for General Sports about skate fitting and high performance for the players. He knows it all. He does a lot of really difficult repairs that most hockey shops would turn away. And that's someone that I knew through over the last like 5 or 6 years, just seeing him around. And finally, me and Adam kind of came up with this idea that we wanted to do more than just coaching, because, on a coach's salary, you're not going to make a healthy living. So we needed a little bit more. We were hungry for a little bit more. And Matt's a guy that loves anyone that shows initiative and wants to make his store better. And so that's something that kind of just came to fruition last summer. And it actually started with a dry run of us out when we were coaching in South Dakota and Wyoming. Just brought a bunch of gear out there and just started seeing if anyone would be interested in it. And, the market out there is a little different. You got people driving to 8 hours across the state of South Dakota or up from Cheyenne all the way down to Denver just to find gear. So the people out there really took a liking to us bringing gear and making sure that they didn't feel like they were forgotten about. And then we kind of just took that momentum from that trip and started off something pretty good here on the goalie side with General Sports. It's really been taken off. We were really blown away with our results for the first year. Didn't anticipate much, no expectation, just go in there working hard. And luckily goalies started coming into the store, and we're seeing a lot more, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's a lot of work, but like we said, work hard, play hard, like to have fun. And these goalies are just coming out of nowhere, it feels like.
You mentioned something that, a goalie can bring their stuff into general sports for a repair and they can get it done there, where a lot of shops that's not the case. A lot of times you're told take it down to George's, which
Yep.
I've taken stuff there before, and George's, they're legendary for a reason. They do a great job, but
Yep.
it's not next door for a lot of people.
Yep. Exactly.
It's nice to be able to go to the neighborhood pro shop and get the repairs done that you need done.
Yeah, I mean we have a little bit. We're kind of trying to be like George's in a sense. I mean, they do great work, and we have a little bit of creativity on our side too. Like for example, someone's bootstrap on a Vaughn pad went bad. The plastic, they didn't like the plastic, so they ended up buying kayak roof rack straps, and I sewed in the metal clasp from that on there for them. So do a little innovation and thinking on the fly, but we'll try to do anything we can to help our goalies. So no repair too big or too small. We'll at least try it and tell you, we'll be upfront with you if we think we can get it done in a timely manner. If not, we'll send you to George's for sure, probably. But I know they get pretty busy and backed up this time of year. So.
I think what's nice about taking and stuff to George is he's a goalie. So if you're taking your goalie stuff there, like he gets what you're talking about. I remember when I took my pads in, it was probably about 2 years ago, for some, just mending. And I was like, seeing this here, and he's like, I totally understand. And, it was like, this is great. It's not like I've typically taken my equipment to shoe repair places because they tend to do the best. And some of them they're just shoe repair guys that can work with the leather. And then there's George's. And even when I was a kid growing up in Chicago, the shoe repair place 2 blocks down, he played hockey. So I never worried about dropping the pads off to get a new strap or something. He's like, nope, I get it. It doesn't only have to look good, it has to be durable.
Yep, exactly. No, I've probably been to George's a handful of times throughout the years with leather straps. My dad's pretty handy, so he tried to do some of it on his own too. But we took at least 3 or 4 trips over to George's throughout my hockey career for sure. So.
Yep, yeah, and it's kind of fun walking into an old shop like that. Just the smell of the leather, and it's just like this is a cool old place.
Got a nostalgia feel to it for sure.
So at George's, or at General Sports, you mentioned you and Adam have really started the push for, to make it a goalie store, not just a general sports store, but a goalie store. Because, I mean, if we're being honest, the Twin Cities really doesn't have one. Stauber's probably the closest thing we have to a goalie shop, but they're very limited in what they have. I think they really only carry CCM, and that's their main line, and they got a few others out there.
Yeah, they carry Vaughn too. So
okay,
they're limited in that sense, but you know what they're doing, what no one else is doing, is their commitment to it, right? Like it is all goalie all the time in there. So that's something that we respect, and good for them. But we're taking a little different approach than they are. I don't think that there's any one pad that is designed for, like, as a one size fits all, if you will. So that's kind of why we're trying to take, a different approach and carry all 6. We're carrying Bauer, CCM, Vaughn, True, Brian's, and Warrior as well. So we have a really good exposure, and if anyone's been in the shop this past year, you might have seen a little bit of goalie stuff on the wall. Well, I can assure you our bookings have been booked for the most part, and it's going to be quite a bit larger than it was last year. So we're excited for the future and can't wait for next spring to see all this new product that comes in.
So on the In Goal podcast, whenever they visit the Source for Sports, they refer to it as Goalie Utopia. Is this going to be the American version of Goalie Utopia?
I really hope so. I know there's some other people at the shop that might not appreciate that, as I'm taking up their space in the store. But I'm going to be fighting for as much retail floor space as I possibly can back there. It's goalie pads that aren't small, so you need a lot of room. And if we're going to have the impression on the market that we want, we're going to have to keep ramping up our inventory here. As I found this year, first of all, it's impossible to get it in.
Yeah.
And definitely it's been hard to keep it on the shelves, which is a good problem to have first year back in the business. So
Might need to get a spiral staircase and turn
right.
that storage area into the goalie area.
I know I get all my steps in climbing up and down the ladder trying to find other sizes for people in the back, and it's a fun experience though. It's good.
Now, you mentioned something that I don't know if you've been exposed to Goalie Gear Nerd on Instagram, but he's all into the equipment, and he's been asked the question many times, what's the best pad? And he goes, well, what style do you play?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think because Marc-Andre Fleury's in true, I should be in true,
Yeah.
or whatever. It's no, how do you play? What's right for you will not be right for somebody else. I mean, that's one of the reasons I stuck with Vaughn, because I like that softer pad. And they're one of the only ones with that softer pad, which I've learned isn't so soft anymore.
Yeah. Right.
I think they can stop calling goalie pads pillows, because they're not the pillows of my youth.
Yeah, no kidding. After seeing some of the materials that are going into some of these pads now, like you won't a lot of these pads, you won't experience hardly any breakdown other than the seams ripping and the quick slide material wearing out after a bit, but the pop stays on those Bauer pads. And Brian's new blocker they came out with this year really rivals that too. They have the pop on that thing is incredible. So everyone's got their little niche, and my job is kind of just try to help find what's best for that individual goalie, just by connecting with them and talking to them about what they like and dislike about their current stuff and setups they've had in the past. So trial and error process, right?
Exactly. It's interesting because I've had goalie partners that have equipment that they absolutely love, and I try it on. I'm especially with gloves, I'm like, this thing is terrible. Like, how can you like this? But to them, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Oh yeah.
So I totally get that. So when somebody's coming into the store and they're looking at a custom set, what are things they should have in mind that most people don't realize when ordering custom equipment outside of the lead time right now?
Yeah. The lead time's the hot ticket item this year. It seems to be. I seem to jump into the market at the right time there. It's been an adventure. We got customers still waiting on CCM pads, waiting on True. And you go on like GGSU and you hear everyone complaining about their lead times. And this is not. No one's immune to this. Same reason people can't get refrigerators, can't get household items that they're waiting on. Hockey is low on that totem pole of list of things coming in the port. There's medical supplies, there's other stuff that is way higher up than us, unfortunately. So patience is something that we ask nowadays out of our customers. But for the most part, it's what you're looking for in your pad. Are you looking for a softer pad where you can kind of control those rebounds, or do you want to kick out big rebounds that are going to be flying off the pad? What's your style of play? Do you need an external break? Do you not need an external break? A lot of people don't realize how much actually goes into the customization. You can, like on Vaughn's, you can kind of taper the toe bridge a little bit. You can taper
I got that.
the gloves to the gloves. Yep, exactly. Yeah. And there's just it can be as detailed or as least detailed as you want it to be. I guess we can get you out of there in 10 minutes. You can send me a picture of your setup and we can send off the code, or I can sit you down and walk you through it piece by piece on the customizer. So it's really tailored to you. And I strongly encourage people to bring in their old gear, and especially with younger kids, so we can kind of educate it. Because like my parents went through it too. They had no idea what they were getting into. How is this supposed to fit? When do we know when to get new gear? So it's kind of an education process for the younger parents, so that when they get to older, when they get to the age where they're ready to order customs and stuff, then they can kind of know what they've had and what they liked and disliked about each brand. And I wouldn't say we don't want to have any kid married to a certain brand at a young age. You want them to try. We encourage kids to try different brands. so that they can figure out what they do and don't like,
One thing I don't see many young kids doing, these days is, they have one brand of pads and another, brand of a blocker. And, there's those kids whose parents are like mine and, they're like, hey, we're going and whatever's either on sale or
Yep.
on the resale that fits the budget. But for the most part, you don't see kids. They're more concerned about the look than they are the feel.
Yep. I think part of it is you see a lot of that in the NHL now, and it's like you said, that goalie gear nerd Instagram page. They want exactly what the pros are wearing, and if the pros have matching setups, these kids want matching setups. I do think some of these parents too, they're just as passionate as the kids are, and they just want to see something that looks cool on the ice for them, and everything's matching. Every
Yep.
parent, well, I can't buy a blocker that doesn't match the glove, right? I go, I never had one until I was in high school that matched. So
Yeah.
I don't know why you can't, but I mean, at the end of the day, whatever they want, I'm here to help them find. So
Yeah. Well, and it's not even the matching because even with like pad skin and stuff, that's easy these days, but it's like having a different brand altogether. They're
yep,
like, we can't do that. At one time I had a Cooper glove and a Vaughn blocker, and the blocker was all black, the glove was all white, and it's like that was just how it was back then. Even in goal pointed out, at the pro level, there's very few guys with mismatched equipment anymore.
yep,
But it wasn't uncommon back in the 90s that guys would have this or that, or they're even changing mid-season from one brand to another.
right.
It was always fun to see how that worked out. But yeah, it's interesting, some of the stuff these kids wear. It reminds me of the shop I went to as a kid. Hockey Unlimited is across the street from the old Southwest Ice Arena. It's funny, when I had Ed and Dane Belfour on, Dane and I played for the same association. We remember the guy that ran the place across the street, and him and his son were goalies. So it was kind of like the goalie shop on the south side of Chicago.
Yep.
And his saying was, it doesn't matter how good you play, it matters how good you look. And since he was the one
Right.
selling the equipment, it made sense. But we're like, yeah, but what's the price tag, Linus?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that was a cool shop because I mean, he had Paul Thompson pads, he had Glenn Miller pads. He was getting good stuff back in the day, that was cutting edge, but it was just like I wasn't growing and I had a set of pads that fit me, so I was just going over there drooling over it. But I'll never forget my first pair of goalie skates. We got them at Play It Again Sports for like $25. When
That's
it
what
came
they got money.
when it came time for a new pair of goalie skates, because I outgrew them, we went across the street to Hockey Unlimited, found a pair, and we were able to trade in the old ones. And he gave us $30 for them. And my dad waited until the sale was complete, and he told Linus this, and he just started laughing. He goes, "Well, looks like you made a good deal today." Made $5 wearing them for, I think, a season and a half.
That's awesome. That's fun.
So, we talked about some of the things parents and goalies should think about when placing a custom order, aside from the lead time. And but custom graphics is becoming a big thing. Bauer's got the Digiprint. CCM at the pro level anyway has kind of their version of Digiprint.
Yep.
Then you got the cut and sew guys like Brian's, and Vaughn's doing a little bit of it, thank God, because I love the way mine turned out.
Yes, you did a great job.
What do people need to think about when they're going custom graphic other than the added cost?
So really it's just it's a matter of how much are you willing to spend sometimes. I mean, Bauer does a good job. I think it's $100 extra. CCM is limiting their stuff, the sublimated graphics for some of their pro guys, but having a good idea of what you want. The more detailed it's going to be, the easier it's going to be for the artist. I know you go back, and I've had a few cases this past year. We went back and forth 5 or 6 times before we finalized the design. So just being completely transparent, maybe draw something up, have a sketch in mind. But with these customizers now, like I know Bauer and a couple other ones, you can put different faces of the pad. Say if you're buying the Supreme lineup from Bauer, you can put the Hyperlight graphic on there pretty easily. It's pretty interchangeable. These customizers have come a long ways over the last few years, and makes it so much easier. They have so many color options that you should, for the most part, with the standard graphic, 95% of the time you should probably be able to find what you're looking for. But don't be afraid to ask. There might be a slight upcharge, but I mean, if that's your dream, right, we'll make it come true. That's what we did for you. And we'll do it for everyone else too. So,
you know, I said to some folks I know that had I had the confidence that the Bauer pads would last 20 years, I probably would have gone with Bauer simply to have this graphic of Eddie Belfour's old pads, because to me that's the greatest looking setup.
I saw a setup like that not too long ago. I think that Bauer pushed out. I think I saw it on GGSU not too long ago. Actually.
Yeah, guys like Mike McKenna, he was the first one to come out with the Reactor 5 look, but nobody's done the alternating black and white lines on the pad like Belfour did. And it's funny because the story behind that is when he got his first set of Reactor 5s, they were all white, and he's like, that's too much white, so he got a Sharpie out and actually colored in those pieces. And I asked him, I was like, well, I hope it was like the thick tip Sharpie, because otherwise you were clearly there a while. And he just started laughing. He didn't quite answer. So I have a feeling it was the fine point Sharpie. But that obviously the next set, they then did it with the leather, but it's like, nobody's done that alternating one yet. And that's what's missing, because that Reactor 5 set, I think it's like the Vaughn Legacy set. It's just a classic, clean look that always looks good.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You know, there's some designs that have come out where it's like they're cool for a year and then they look dated. But those didn't look dated. And when I was thinking, that was honestly something I thought about. It's like, okay, I'm going to have these pads for quite some time. I don't want them to look dated, in 2-3 years. And it's like, well, what if I can get the old look? That'd be even cooler. And so it worked out pretty good.
That's awesome. Yeah. With pad skins nowadays, there's a couple different schools of thought you can go through with when ordering for the store. But as we're entering the market, we don't have any one association that's way stronger in terms of it, like presence in our store right now. Just we haven't been steered in a certain direction. So we are ordering more of those stock white and stock white black pads. But with pad skins now, and I've been able to do a few sets for some people that have turned out really well, that it's so easy that we can do that. I know Brian's does like a pre-cut color that like call it color kits. We can order those for you and throw those on your pads and stuff. But it's fun to see some of these designs that some of these kids come up with. I'm a little worried about my timeline and how fast it's going to take me to get some of these done. But it's a lot of fun, because seeing a little, I'm working on with a kid from St. Louis Park. I'm going to do it over Thanksgiving. He's got some V8s that he's wearing right now, and I'm turning him into a custom V8. It'll be a one-of-a-kind pad when it's done, and it'll look pretty cool. So,
it's funny you mentioned Brian's, because they're ahead of the game in that they offer the pre-cut stuff already. It's like how the other manufacturers haven't hopped on that train is kind of mind-boggling.
I would agree. And that I'll be the first to tell you, those Brian's pads, there's so many layers of leather in there that it's quite a challenge to get all the pad skins on there. I did a pair that probably took me a few hours last week or a couple weeks ago, and they turned out really good. But man, you have to be detailed when you're putting those on, just because there's so many different seams throughout the pad that you're kind of trying to dodge and stay on line with. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I don't want to send anything out that looks bad either.
Well, and if I'm bringing my pads to the shop to get skinned, that's what I want, because I've seen some people on GGSU that get the pad skins and they do it themselves, and it's like, even in the picture you're like, whew. Right, Biff, your girlfriend
and far away. Right.
So,
for sure.
So let's talk my pads, because I've gotten tons of questions about them. Aside from the graphics obviously custom. When we did the customization. The pads themselves, they're 32+1.
Yep.
We really, other than that, they were mostly stock. I know we added that leather strap at the top.
Yep.
Grab it. We have the leather strap at the top for aesthetics, but other than that, it's really just stock options. If I remember right, we didn't do anything else, and then it's got the tapered toe. I mean, other than that, it's just a stock V9, correct?
Yep. So it is, and that's part of what makes it so much easier when you come in the shop now that we have. Because when you came in, we didn't have a whole lot of pads in the store.
Yeah.
We were still in that phase. Now it's so much easier because you can try on different pads and feel the strapping. Oh, this feels too tight. This feels too loose. When we have knee pads for people to wear in the store when they're trying stuff on, but the stock minus some of like the plastic clips and stuff are what most people want. These companies have done a good job for the most part of finding what's going to fit most of the goalies that are coming up right now and what they're going to like, and then they do a good job of offering other alternatives on their customizers. It's just sometimes it's a little overwhelming if you don't really know where you're going in terms of that options.
Yep.
Some people don't know what the different straps mean or what the fast rotation system means, or they're not familiar. So that's
I was in that boat.
Yeah.
Because the last set of pads I bought had toe buckles, so a lot changed. But talking about straps, we talked about the one that's going under the boot, and where would I want it? And you're like, don't worry about it because it comes out. You can adjust the angle, and I did that before my skate Saturday, and I was like, yeah, I like this a lot better. So it's like that's the other thing I've liked is it's really simple to make some of these adjustments after you get the pad if you're not sure what you want.
They've done a good job. It's like these companies know that goalies are picky or something.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to our equipment. Now, when we look at the glove, again, it was pretty much just stock. I know we went with the Pro Palm, which is a little harder to break in, that's for sure. But it was more for the longevity. But other than that, it's the 2-piece cuff with the split T. But otherwise, again, it's just stock.
They and there's gloves are getting easier and easier to break in. So many of these companies are coming up with the game ready palms. Where I've had dads that have come in the shop and they're looking for gloves for their son or daughter, and they throw on a glove and they're just so impressed with how easily it closes right away. These companies are thinking about a 10, 12-year-old goalie trying to figure it out. How are they going to have success closing a glove if it's that beefed up? So they've made some improvements there. There's companies that perform better than others in different age ranges, and that's exactly why we try to carry all the options, because what works for Johnny might not work for Sarah. So one of those things where you can do that, and then we can throw it in the skate oven for you too. We do a lot of baking gloves. Pretty sure we did that to yours too. That helped the break-in process a little bit, I'm guessing, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I was texting Ed. He's like, go get a stick extension plug and throw that in there to hold it open at night. And I even took some clamps from the garage, and I would, instead of tying it shut at night, I would clamp it shut. And that I noticed helped. In fact, that's why I got them at my desk, because I'm still doing that, even though I've had them on the ice a few times. But it's coming along. It's definitely easier to close. And the other thing too is once I get on the ice, it's just kind of that adrenaline. You don't think about it. I haven't had any pop out. Probably the biggest thing is getting it as open as I want to have it open. Right. That's a little bit harder. The closing, it's the easy part, in my opinion.
Right.
And then the blocker, that was just stock. We didn't do anything to that, again, other than the graphic. That was just stock.
Changed the graphic on that a little bit, but
snuck
that logo in up there, and that's nice too. A lot of these companies, Vaughn's always been willing to do that, put a logo up at the top of the pads. I know we did that for one of our coworkers who plays at Augsburg, Jack Roble. He came up with a Call of Duty inspired pad this year with some maroon digiprint. It's a little chaotic, but I like how they turned out. You know, they look pretty good.
Yeah, I saw those in the shop when I picked mine up. They except for the colors, is a St. Mary's grad.
Yeah.
I think they looked pretty cool.
Yeah. He even put on his nameplate, he put at Kodak Jack, so that's his gamer tag. So
nice.
going to war out there in those pads right now. They're doing well. I think he said they're first in the country right now, D3. So they've had a hot start to the year.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So still loyal to the old alma mater.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, it's the side part that I was looking forward to, you know, for protecting the hand. Yeah. But the opening here for holding the stick, it's like, okay, that's a little more restrictive than what I'm used to. I mean, my first blocker was a waffle board with just, you know, the leather glove. There was no protection whatsoever.
Yeah. And so they're beefing stuff up now just because the game is changing so much, and you know there's the blocker palm rotates as you're catching the shot. They're just trying to give you a little more protection, a little more stiffness, and of course there's sacrifices there, but at the end of the day, if it keeps you in the game, it's good, right?
Yeah.
You know, once you get out there.
I've got a few puck marks on it already, and I do notice, you know, it's a lot more stable on my hand. The old blocker, when I would rotate it, you kind of felt the board a little bit. This one, it's a solid one piece. You feel a little more control of it, which is nice. So it's like, I'll take that over, you know, the protection I had on the other one. What I also find interesting is now there's that paddle block or whatever that you can put on your paddle to stop pucks from coming up and hitting your fingers.
Yeah.
First of all, I've never had a puck do that in the 30 some odd years I've been playing hockey. And second of all, with the protection there is on the fingers now, it's like, I'm questioning, is there really a need for it? But I'm not going to pick on the goalies that have it, because you know, maybe they've gotten a puck that rides up, but it's like, you know, what are you doing that you're getting pucks there that you need extra stuff to help you out?
One of my goalie at Hopkins, he actually has it. He says he likes it. I think he's got it up a little higher. He likes it because he pushes his pinky or his pointer finger down into it, and that's where he knows it's like a guidance, so he knows his hand's far enough down on the stick. And I don't know. Okay. Probably a security blanket, peace of mind kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Like, I've got one of those Goalie Guru attachments on my stick, and I like that. It gives me a little more control over the stick. Because I use foam core sticks, it doesn't stick as nice as it does, so I have to reattach it every so often.
Yeah.
But my Warrior's almost dead, so I've been looking on Pro Stock Hockey at different sticks, and they've got a couple with the trigger grip, and I'm going, I might try a trigger grip and see how I like that.
That's something we're willing to test out. You know, I'm willing to cut a trigger grip into some sticks for some people. But obviously, you know, it's easier said than done, because once you cut it, you're stuck with it, right? You know, when you're paying what you're paying for your stick, you hope they're going to like it, right? You know, and there's only so much you can do after you cut it. So
that's one of the reasons I was looking at Pro Stock Hockey, because it's like, okay, if I need a new stick, if I can get one cheaper that has it in there already, test it out. If I like it, awesome. You know, then I'll work in the garage and figure out a jig so I can just take the router and on the next one, same spot. But well, I think that might be my next stick after Christmas. We'll see.
Those Warrior sticks are dynamite. We've gotten a bunch of them into the shop finally. You know, they were stuck overseas for the longest time, and then they finally made it in. But that's a stick that's extremely durable. You know, right up there with I thought Bauer did a really good job with their Hyperlight this year. Those two seem to be.
Yeah.
You know, you can't go wrong with the Warrior M1 Pro Plus or the RV2 Plus, 2 Pro Plus. Sorry. Both those are really well performing sticks, and the Hyperlight, you know, they did a good thing with shortening the shaft, and got a lot of good reviews from our goalies in those two brands of sticks this year. So
yeah, you mentioned shortening the shaft. That seems to be a trend right now of goalies going with the shorter shaft for puck handling, and even shorter paddles. A lot of goalies are testing out.
Yeah, and that's one thing we try to educate parents on too. You see a lot of, as a goalie coach first, you're on the ice with these kids every day, and you see a kid trying to learn the position. He's got a 24 or 25-inch paddle, and he's not even 4'5". You're sitting there and you're watching him drag it behind him the whole time, and you explain to the parents that it's way too heavy for them, that they start to get the idea. But the shorter shaft and the shorter paddle, makes it more durable, and then it also changes the angle on that when you're making your stick saves. We talk to goalies about that all the time. If you want to keep your hands in the right position, when you're dropping in that butterfly, that stick, you shouldn't have to change the angle on your stick. If it's ramping up over your shoulder every time you try to make a stick save, it's a strong chance that your stick might be a hair too big for you.
Yeah, I remember the first non-association stick I owned was a Titan, San Jose colors. I got it as I think I was a squirt, and it was a senior stick. And I used that stick for as long as I could. And, because I started out holding my stick up like this, I still use, I think, a 27-inch paddle, because I was just used to a big stick at that point, where it's like going short now. I tried a shorter stick briefly in college. It just was too much for me.
It changes a lot for you.
It does.
You bend, you have your hand positioning, and you're always second guessing it. But for our younger goalies, we try to get them in it younger so they know what it's supposed to feel like. And a lot of parents come in and say, "Oh, I think the stick's too short for my kid." And my first response is, "Does he look like he's bending his knees enough?" You got to challenge that. And then if they come back and say it still feels too short, then we'll think about bumping you up. But I try, I'm protective over that. I don't want to sell something to someone that's going to make it harder for them to play the game. That's part of the reason why we started selling goalie gear at General anyways, was to help these kids get better and make it easier for these kids to see the results they want to see. Their parents are throwing so much money into this stuff. We want to put them in gear to see them succeed,
Yeah. And, it's funny, when I tried the shorter shaft or the shorter paddle, is because, I have a low crouch. So to me, it made sense that shorter paddle would be good for me. And it just, it was too much of a difference for me. I was like, here we go. Yeah. So I want to be mindful of time. We've been talking a little while. Don't know how many episodes you've listened to, but I like to end with a list of 10 rapid fire questions. Same questions that I've asked every single guest. And the first one, this could get interesting knowing you coach with us. What's the craziest coaching moment from your playing or coaching days?
Oh man. That's a good one. Probably just overall, my first year, we'll steer away from some of the S stories. I don't know if they belong on the podcast. Maybe after the podcast we could talk about some of those. My first year coaching, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I was just moving home, and S calls me and asks me if I want to coach at Eden Prairie, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'd like to coach at Eden Prairie. So I ended up coaching a Bantam B2 team there. And, I thought I'd reach out to some of my old buddies who I know moved home from college or whatever, and see what kind of help I could get. Well, it turns out I didn't have any help, and no parents wanted to help me that year. So it was me versus about 18 or 19 kids on a youth hockey team at the Bantam B level. So that was quite the adventure, to say the least. We, you got a bunch of 14, 15-year-old boys all running around in different directions.
Yep.
I think there was only one fight at practice that year, so it was a successful year.
Having a 14-year-old son right now, I can tell you that age, they're all morons. Yeah. There's nothing intelligent that comes out of their mouths.
Yeah. You can say that again. They were a fun group of morons to coach, though. They were really fun.
Yeah.
But that was probably my biggest eye-opening thing, where
good birth control.
I really cut out for this, I had a couple of those moments, but no, they kept it fun, and it was a really great group of parents that were super understanding. So it was a good experience. I love that group.
I always said coaching was a good form of birth control.
Yeah, I've said that a handful of times too, for sure.
So the next question, what's your favorite all-time goalie mask?
Ooh, that's tough. I don't know. I'm sure you get this a lot, but the Tim Thomas or the Hasek, those are my favorite by far.
Those are good ones. I wore a Hasek helmet in college for a year after a good concussion,
Yeah,
and I loved it. And it was funny because the mobility with that helmet was unreal, and the visibility was
yeah,
great.
vision.
And I didn't wear a dangler or anything, and the whole time I wore it, didn't take one puck to the neck. And
Yeah,
then after another concussion, coaches and parents are like, you need to wear a real goalie mask again. So then I went with the at the time it was the Coho Heaton with an extended chin. Very
yeah,
first practice, I get a shot that comes up under the extended chin, hits me in because and I don't wear a dangler, just hits me in the neck. It stung a little bit, but I was laughing. And my goalie partner, he's like, "What's up?" He's like, "Skated a year with nothing right here,
yeah,
first practice back, I get a stinger right to the neck." And, then it looked like, great big bruise for a while. People are like, what were you and your girlfriend doing?
yeah,
Like, seriously, it's raw hockey puck.
yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And they were wearing turtlenecks to family dinner after that.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. So the next question, what's your favorite rink you've played at?
Ooh, well, this past weekend we were actually up at Amsoil. That's a really fun rink. I know we were just coaching; it was just a scrimmage, but that's a fun rink, and I can imagine how much that's rocking in there. But my favorite rink I ever played at had to be Braemar. I
Mm-hmm.
got to play there all the time. Braemar West. There's few atmospheres like it. On a Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday night game.
Yep.
Just seeing the full stands and stuff. I know we'll be back to normal this year, but that's a really fun atmosphere to play in and be a part of. So I was fortunate to be a part of that growing up.
I try not to throw the term historic around, but that is an historic Minnesota arena.
Yeah,
It's up there with the Rorods and the Rozos and the Hibbings, and Cloquet is one of those rinks I like, just kind of a fun little rink. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, Braemar is definitely in that class for sure.
for
For
sure.
more so because of its history. I mean, how many state championship teams have played out of there, and
Yep.
just
And the
just
guys
just a
at
few.
Braemar always do a great job keeping the ice too, so that helps.
Yeah, that makes a big difference because
Yep.
I skate at the super rink in my men's league, and some of the times you're like, do you guys know how to adjust the blade?
Right?
Last night our game was on rink 6, which is the USA Hockey women's rink. So it's like, okay, we know we're going to have good ice tonight. 5
Yeah.
and 6, that's the USA Hockey and the Bethel rink, and so those sheets are always top notch. The rest
Yep.
of them, it's
They're
it's a
dialed.
gamble.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I know what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. So what's your favorite stick that you've ever used?
Ooh, favorite stick. So when I was growing up, full rate, you don't really get a whole lot of choices. So we had to when I was living in Edina, we had to drive up to Dave's up in Fridley,
Yep.
where we'd found it was the Ketz curve. I don't even know who or what it was, but it was the Reebok Ketz curve. I bought those. We'd buy them 3 at a time, so we wouldn't have to drive back up there. But that was by far my favorite stick I ever used. So
Yeah. I those were the early composites then, weren't they?
yeah, yep, still, yep,
So yeah, buying them 3 at a time was smart because those things were brittle. I remember when I
yeah.
was coaching, we had some goalies. I had those, and it seemed like once a week one of those guys was breaking a stick.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
I was fortunate. My dad said once you break these, you're buying your own. So he wasn't going to let me be the goalie that's banging his stick over the post or anything like that
yep.
after a goal, because I'd be buying my own sticks in a hurry if that was the case.
That happened to me. After breaking enough over my knee, because it was a little easier to do back in the wooden stick days.
Right.
My dad goes, "You break a stick over your knee in anger, you're buying the next one." And sure enough, next game, I got angry after a goal, broke my stick, and I just slumped. And my grandpa was at the game, and he looks at me, Dad, he goes, "Why is he so mad? That wasn't a bad goal." My dad's laughing. He goes, "Because he knows it just cost him at the time $50." And
Yeah.
so
Right.
that then my grandpa finds me in the lobby after the game and slips me a 50 and says, "Don't tell your dad. Go get
That's
yourself a new
awesome.
stick."
Awesome.
After that, I haven't broken one out of anger since. It was just one of those funny ones where grandpa was there to take care of me.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
what's your favorite youth hockey memory?
Youth hockey memory. Probably my senior year playing junior Goalie. It was one of those things where Kurt ended up cutting everyone minus, 2 kids. So it was the same kids I grew up playing with. We were all seniors. Kind of got to have a last hurrah together. And, Bill Smith, who's been at Edina for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, it seems like. I still hear guys coming in the shop that say Billy coached me. And I'm like 45. But no, that year was just a blast. I think we lost 3 games all year. We were able to win the state tournament kind of as my last hockey game ever in association hockey or high school hockey, if you will. And it was a lot of fun. That was just a really good group of guys, and some of the guys I still, keep in touch with today, even, just fun group.
So what's the best chirp you've heard on the ice, off the ice, in the locker room, coaching? Best one you've heard?
Oh man. Shoot. There's some mouthy kids on this Hopkins bunch. You should hear one of our games. It doesn't end. There's a kid named Lucas Wright who he's always giving it to the opponent. He thrives off it. Probably nothing I should repeat, but it's good stuff. I love that.
It's always fun when you got that one kid on the team that just can chirp all game long. And I found some of the best chirps aren't even the mean ones. It's just like the out of nowhere where it's like, did you just say that? Like, really?
He's a heck of a kid, and he's a lacrosse kid too. So he's a little goofy, but he's got some good ones. I always laugh standing behind him on the bench. That's for sure.
So what's the worst post-game beer you've had?
Oh, worst? Anything warm.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree.
I'm not picky. I will drink just about anything, but if it's above room temperature, I can't touch it. My part, I don't. I can drink them.
Yeah, I'm with you on the warm beer. I'm still here. I'm with you on the warm beer. A couple times it's happened, and it's like, oh Jesus! Like all we were looking forward to all game was a cold beer, and this is what we got. But we soldier through. So when you tape your stick, do you go heel to toe or toe to heel?
Ooh, I'm a heel to toe guy still.
Okay, yeah. I most goalies are. I was talking to Connor Beaupre. He's had the best explanation as to why he goes toe to heel. But part of that is he's good at playing the puck. I, on the other hand, am not. Especially with the new glove. I'm not used to it yet. So playing the puck is a little more difficult. In fact, I can't even call it my first shot last night. Came out to play the puck and turned it right over and wound up in the net. And I just kind of looked at my teammates like, sorry, fellas, that's why I don't play the puck. And they're like, you just stay in the net.
Yeah, just stay in the net. That's awesome.
What's your favorite number to wear and why?
Ooh, probably was 47 actually. It's one of those numbers where as a senior, me and a couple of my football buddies knew we were on the junior Goalie team and decided to have a little more fun with our numbers instead of your typical goalie numbers. And so we ended up wearing our football numbers that year, and I wore 47, and that was by far my favorite number I've ever worn.
All right.
More unique.
And that's why I like that question, because you get the 30s and 35s and ones, but when you get those random numbers, there's always a good reason. Because my goalie coach from college, he asked me, what's with these weird numbers we got now? It's like, I don't know. I don't care as long as I know why. I want to know why, because usually there's a fun story behind it. And I would say that that's a good one. So the last question, what advice do you have for young goalies?
For young goalies, the biggest thing that I can say is just trust the process. There's so many people that are so worried about results on a day-to-day basis that they're forgetting about the process that got them there to begin with. Especially juniors, goalies, kids that don't make their team that they want to make their freshman or sophomore year, even the Bantam AA, Pee Wee AA. There's so much that goes into this, and I know a lot of these kids work super hard year round. And it's really to not make the team they want. I went through stuff being told I wasn't good enough to make the varsity.
Mm-hmm.
But those are hard lessons which is, in my opinion, part of the reason why you play the game. You're not going to play hockey the rest of your life, and life isn't going to be fair. You're going to have to learn to fight through adversity. And what better way than be able to do it with a bunch of teammates or brothers or sisters or whoever you're going to war with that season? Make the most of your opportunity. Just because one coach tells you you're not good enough doesn't mean there's another coach that doesn't need you somewhere down the line. So stay positive and keep working hard all the way through it. That's the message we try to send to our goalies and kids I talk to on a day-to-day basis who are upset about where they ended up this year. But make the most of your situation. All you can do is worry about yourself. You can't worry about what the other goalies, what another team is doing.
Well, and to your point of trust the process, look at Adam. He's playing junior goal because he never played high school hockey, and then he winds up playing junior hockey and college hockey, now pro hockey, because he trusted the process.
Yep. That's a great example. And then there's countless other ones too, that they don't always make it to the pros, but you look at kids, or for example, one of our kids that we train right now is Carson Stokes. Last year he was really he was a Shattuck kid, really good goalie, had a chance at the NA level early, got sent down. He wasn't sure. This year his team he did really well in the NA3 last year, and then this year he's playing in North Iowa again. Not getting all the starts right away, but he's just going about his business, working every day, and the message is the starts will come. The coaches will see your work ethic. You're there every day. You're clocked in, ready to work hard, and the results will come eventually. It's not an overnight process, especially in juniors.
No, I'm still waiting for the process to fully come to fruition with me.
You need both.
At least I'm getting the starts because I'm the only goalie on the team.
Yeah, that makes it a little easier.
Yeah. Although the way I've been playing this fall, if there were two of us, I know I'd be the one on the bench. That's for sure. I have not had a good fall season. But it is what it is, and I go out there every game with a smile on my face, and I have the Ted Lasso mentality of be a goldfish, and all is good.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So where can folks find you or General Sports on social media?
So we're at General Sports MN is our Instagram handle, and then you go to generalsportsmn.com, and you can book an appointment with me for goalie gear and skate fittings. And then, of course, for any of the non-goalie players or hockey players that aren't goalies, obviously, you can book an appointment with Matt for skate fittings and stuff like that. You can reach out to me. My email is Tory, Tory, at minnesotagoaliecompany.com. It's all spelled out. I'm regretting that already, as I've had to type that out multiple times. But yeah, feel free to reach out. There's any questions or concerns about gear, how it fits, how it should fit. Do I need a new one of these? Just bring it into the shop, and I'll tell you straightforward. I'm not going to try and steer you into anything. Just educate you, and we'll find the right thing for you. Even if I don't have it, I'll make sure you know what size you need, and then we'll help you find a shop that does have what you're looking for.
Awesome. Well, bud, thanks for joining me on the podcast. We talked about doing it when I placed the order, but I said let's wait until the pads come in. So it was fun to get this scheduled and talk about it. So thanks again.
For having me. Yeah, thanks for having me, and glad everything worked out. They look great. So
yeah,
I'm part of that process. At least that was fun.
I'm loving them. When I walked into the locker room last week for the game and the boys saw it, they were pretty excited. It's not too often you have forwards asking to try on your gloves.
Yeah, right.
Usually the other way around, asking to try on their new gloves.
That means the boys at Vaughn did a good job then. So props to those guys too, for sure. Evan, Nate, and those guys up there, they do a good job. So
yeah, Ev was great in the process. I'm still talking to him to get him on the podcast to talk about it too. So that'll be fun.
I was on the phone with him a little bit a couple weeks ago. He's a great guy.
Yeah. Thoroughly enjoy him and his podcast. So it'll be fun. So, well, thanks again. I don't want to keep you too much longer. I've taken up way too much of your time as it is ordering pads. So,
no worries. Just skates to be sharpened at the shop. Those will get done when they get done, right?
Yep. Tory and I have talked a bit over the last few months with my equipment order. It was fun to get him on the podcast and talk about his background, not just in hockey, but also in football, and talk custom equipment orders. I think his background as a coach really helps him when fitting goaltenders and helping them find the right equipment for their style. Be sure to find General Sports of Minnesota on Twitter and Instagram by searching General Sports MN. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube simply by searching for Wash Up Goalie, and I'll pop up. Visit washupgoalie.com for some great hockey-related content, my beer league hockey video highlights, and of course, all podcast episodes. If you want some Wash Up Goalie or Tendy Talk apparel, be sure to visit my Threadless shop by clicking the merchandise link on my website. If you like this podcast, go listen to the BLPA Big Show. It's the OG BLPA Podcast Network show where a couple of beer league players talk beer league hockey, draft experience shenanigans, and exploits from around the game. Be sure to check out the full lineup of hockey-related podcasts on the Hockey Podcast Network as well. There are too many to list here, but shows like the Brews and Bruins podcast, the Barn Burner Hockey Podcast, and the Fourth Line Voice podcast can all be found and all presented by DraftKings. Be sure to use promo code THPN when signing up. I need to thank the band The Zambonis for allowing me to use their music on my podcast. You can download their music on iTunes or listen wherever you stream music from. I'm always working on lining up other goalies to talk to. If you are a goalie or have connections to a goalie who I should talk to, shoot me an email at washupgoalie39@gmail.com or send me a DM on social media. Let's not forget, if you're a brand who wants to sponsor the show, be sure to reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk. And finally, if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, and comment on the podcast platform you're listening on. It's a quick action on your part that helps others find Tendy Talk. So, until next time, keep your stick on the ice and your body square to the puck.
Yeah, Dave.
Hey, have you checked out the pond today?
It's funny you ask. I was just down there this morning.
Yeah, any good news?
Well, Dave, the pond?
Yeah?
It's froze right over.